Today, I want to talk about camshafts, specifically the quality of a flat tappet camshaft for a Cummins if you're in the market to buy a new one or if you have to replace a used one, and how to change the degree of a camshaft if your centerline is a little bit off. I'm going to go over both those. But hitting that first one first, as you saw in my last video, this camshaft was pretty badly pitted. You can see here on this lobe, that is not something I want to throw back in the engine. And that's how it looks on a lot of these lobes. So I did a lot of research trying to figure out what camshaft I need to throw in here. I didn't want anything aftermarket. I just wanted to go factory. But I still wanted to know that why would I spend $800 on a factory OEM cam if I can buy these cheap ones on eBay for $150 to $200? Is there a difference in any of that stuff? Now, a lot of hot rod builders who are using flat tappet cams in their engine, they're talking about this. I saw nothing on the internet about Cummins guys having this issue. Maybe it's not an issue, but I want to bring this up because there is such a varying difference between prices and sources and all of that stuff. But the hot rod guys broke it down to three things. And the first thing is oil quality. After they started putting a lot more emissions on an engine, they took a lot of that zinc out of the oil, and that can be contributing to the wear that we're seeing on these flat tappet cams. Now on this one specifically, I was always running a high grade oil, but I was running a higher PSI valve spring on the head, and I've been doing that for a long time. So maybe that contributed, and maybe I should have run an additive for zinc. I don't know there. The other thing that these hot rod guys are talking about is the hardness of the camshafts. They're getting big name brands of what should be having the quality control standards, but when they cut these in half and you can actually see the hardness in the metal, it's not very much, and in some places it's kind of lacking. So they're saying that's a second reason why so many people can be having these failures. The third is the dimensions. And this is something I had no idea about, being a complete amateur when it comes to internals. But when you're looking at these lobes, as flat as they look, there should actually be a taper in here. And what I mean is one of these sides is going to be 1.5 to 2.5 thou higher or lower than the other side. And that creates a taper in there. And the reason why that's important, and that has to be on any flat tappet cam, is when you're looking at the tappet itself, these, if they're made to the standard, will actually be crowned. And this center is actually going to be 1.5 to 2.5 thou higher than the edge of this. And when both of those are made to that standard, when this is rotating, it's actually going to spin the tappet. And that's what you want. And a lot of these failures, it's just swiping across the tappet, and that's creating premature wear, flattening out all these lobes, and causing a lot of issues. Now this tappet itself, you can tell it was wearing perfectly. You see those swirl marks in there, and all 12 of them had that exact wear. So these were running perfectly fine. But that's something to consider because there's a lot of big name Cummins aftermarket companies who are making stellar cams, and they're reporting that new tappets from Cummins themselves are not meeting the hardness requirement. It's also not meeting the crown requirement. A lot of them from Cummins are either flat or even dished. So if a big company like Cummins is not meeting the standard on the tappets, at least, I don't know about the camshafts, but if they're not meeting it here, what's a $150, $200 Chinese camshaft maker going to meet? Are they going to meet those dimension standards? I have no idea. I don't even know if it's a problem, as I've seen nobody from the Cummins community talk about it, but it is something to actually consider when you're buying a new cam, because I didn't want to have to spend money, and those Chinese ones on eBay were really enticing. So keep that in mind in your whole process. Now, when you do get into a new cam, it's good to throw it in the engine and check that intake centerline, check the clearances. So I use this tool and check piston protrusion, found exact top dead center. I found the intake centerline with that and this degree wheel from Summit. And to kind of show you just what kind of measurements you're taking here, these are the piston protrusions for every cylinder I had. As you can see, it's slightly different on most of these. And then this is the valve depth for the head. So this is intake side, this is the exhaust side, and I want to make sure all my clearance is there. Even on an OEM cam, you should be checking at least piston protrusion and valve depth to make sure that nothing's going to hit once you throw that on. But this setup here, I have a push rod going down to the tappet. That's how I found that whole thing. The biggest thing that I ran into is I wasn't hitting the correct center line I wanted to hit. On these camshafts, of course, you have the 2 dots, and then you have the 1 dot on the crank that you want to line up. But as far as where this gear goes on the camshaft, there's just a Woodruff key, and that's it. So when I first put this in and I first tried it out, I was at a 97 degree intake center line, and 99 is what was ideal. So I need to find an offset key. And this is something I spent hours on the internet trying to figure out, and there is no information on what to actually use. But where these keys go is they go right here at the end of the camshaft, and the gear presses on. So this is what locates the gear on the camshaft. So looking at offset keys, these are the ones that I have. This is a factory Cummins key. As you can see, it's just plain and flat. And then these are the offsets. Is similar as these might look on video, they're all different. But the secret is what these offset keys are. They are VP44 keys. Every Cummins engine that needs to change it, every aftermarket one, they're just using VP44 keys. It's the exact same key size and the exact same key offset. So when you're looking at these, to give you an example, if you've had a VP44, it's going to look familiar, but it has all the same stamping because that's all they are, VP44 keys. Now this kit, I bought 4 of them, and I bought the kit from Scheid Diesel for $25, but these are the actual Cummins part numbers and what's stamped on the gear. So Cummins part number, this is how the keyway is stamped, and then these are the degrees it changes on the camshaft. So this is actually what comes in the Scheid Diesel kit, $25 for all 4 of them, or at least for me on the internet, when I typed in those Cummins part numbers, they were coming up as $25 as a key. I'm going to post on Instagram and hard post on this so you don't have to go back to the video to find this exact chart. But there is a whole list of VP44 keys, and they have that all changing for the calibration of the pump. But this is what works in any 1989 camshaft to 2020 or 2018. So 89 to 18, any Cummins camshaft, these are the keyways that you're going to be using. But that's it. I got mine. I used the 040, so I went from a 97 to a 98.82. It's so close to 99, and that's where it's going to stay. So I'm going to get this engine back together, and that is it.